So let's talk about Trump Russia. Um, the whole Trump has an emotional reaction about Russia, and it's not just wanting to put a skyscraper in Moscow. Well, some of that is I mean he thinks he can still do that, but he doesn't have a company anymore, so he really can't. He wants the Trump name on on something in Moscow, but Russia's fallen apart. And I think he's in denial about that because he wants to stay in Moscow, but Russia is actually just they've destroyed themselves. Anybody who's really following stuff knows he's destroying himself, and so he's not willing to look at how badly they're doing. But more than that, he's afraid of what a lot of people of his generation and my generation were afraid of: global thermonuclear annihilation. When he so deeply emotionally jumped on Zelisnky about World War III, that's not without some there's data involved in why he said that. It's because he was raised like I was raised to fear, duck and cover, all that. He's from the duck and cover generation, or a little older than that, who thought that we were that we could be blown up. And they haven't disabused him of the notion of that his advisor, the Pentagon, hasn't. And neither, and they can't tell Tulsi Gabbard anything because she's a Russian spy. I mean, she's been a Russian agent, and any of these people who spout the nonsense out of the Kremlin, you can't tell them what the truth is because they would share sources and methods. You'd have to explain the sources and methods to them to explain to them how much Russia is not a threat. And if you actually explain that to them and they shared it, then Pentagon spending would be threatened. And there's ways around that by having a big throw a lot of money at Elon Musk that you would otherwise spend on military research and naval research, and then have the world become a spacefaring planet, and bury the hatchet and not in the other person's head. Then you wouldn't have to worry about defense spending. At least you'd still have spending, and it'd still be necessary spending, if only to put a science station on the far side of the moon. That's entire mission is to look for one, intelligent life, and two, meteors that are heading straight for us. If you put something on outside of the far side, it's a perfect observatory because you cover everything that you need to cover with no noise at all from the Earth, and it's the perfect place to have astronomy and a colony that does astronomy and takes care of itself. And I mean, you can put up a whole station up there that if you make it self-sufficient enough, and you can, because you can do, you bury stuff, and and enough water reserves, and you put enough, you put enough, you make the life cycle more flush with resources than it needs, and then you keep adding to it. Because if there's abundant material to do a life cycle, then it's there's a margin for error. Right now on the space station, there's no margin for error. You'd have to actually make a lot of water, essentially, and a lot of air, oxygen, essentially, but not too much, but, have the ability to, and a lot of carbon dioxide and plenty of nitrogen, so people don't die of too much oxygen. But the part that Putin's can't do a nuclear war, and Trump doesn't know that because they can't tell him that. Because if they explained it to him, then Putin would know things that we want Putin to know about how much is known about him. He has no idea. I mean, Putin doesn't know what's going on in his own country, or how we know what's going on in his own country. And I can't tell you why I know, or what I know. Some of this stuff is common knowledge, but some of this stuff is like, yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, and there's something I can just speculate about, but how shit like that works, and I can Tom Clancy. They were wondering how he knew what he did. And it's like he just made it up, but he had a very good imagination that kind of got under the zeitgeist. Smart people can tap into the zeitgeist, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the way it has to be, and sometimes it's the way it really is. So yeah, there's no way that Trump is risk averse in that way because he was raised to be. Trump is risk averse about, and you can tell by the emotionalism of his reaction, he's very risk averse about being bombed. He need not be. And if he isn't, then he would then say that, okay, that Putin is bluffing. And Putin bluffing means that, that they can, he can go wholeheartedly on Ukraine and leave his friends in Moscow alone, even though, he does like the authoritarians and admires that, but he mostly is afraid of nuclear weapons hitting every piece of property he has, that he lives in, his personal property. So, yeah, individualists have a lot to lose from war. So they don't like war and they're afraid of it. And that's what he is. He's like a classic CEO individualist. And he doesn't know and can't be trusted with the technical knowledge that would disabuse him of the fact that he's really, what he doesn't know is hurting the rest of us. But telling Gabbard is not an option. Having Tulsi, if you could trust Tulsi Gabbard not to tell the Russians, then she's the perfect person to tell him how wrong he is about the strategic situation. But if you can't trust her, I mean, they have to have a deputy to her. No, she has to be in on it, or to know it, and we can't trust her to know it. So it's a kind of a catch-22. But if you look at Trump as somebody who favors values and feelings over reasoning and knowledge, and conformity, Trump's the anti-conformist in the room, and they voted for him because of that. They want CEOs because CEOs are nonconformists. They're freer to act, except they can't because they don't know what the hell they're doing. At a certain point, life has gotten so complicated that Trump's values are not enough to have Trump do a good job. And the people who are in the Republican Party want there to be no intelligentsia that knows more than they do, that they have to conform to. They don't trust it because they go by their emotions. They go by their authenticity. They don't conform. They don't respect reason as much as they respect their values, which is a perfectly fine way to cognate. We have to have people like that. But we've given them the car keys, and this is a problem. But yeah, so Trump's not. I mean, granted, yeah, Trump's a bit corrupt, but it's just beyond that. I mean, he's got to know in his heart of hearts that Putin's done, and he's fearing again the emotional reaction, and the reason he's cozying up to Russia is because the emotional reaction is you can see in the emotional reaction again. It's because he's afraid that not placating Putin will make us safe, and we're not in danger. We're really not. And probably NATO isn't in danger either. The new Soviet man that Putin is. We discussed that in comparative politics when I was in college. I got out of it because I had a professor, God rest his soul, who I had every day, and he liked to shout when he lectured, and I just couldn't handle that. So I got rid of one of the classes and not the others, because his way of projecting was actually shouting. And, yeah, but I learned enough about new Soviet man to know that's what Putin is. He is the new Soviet man. And, you know, they're very into loyalty too, rather than technocratism. So yeah, as he's into the values of the Russian state, not you know, and you know the intelligentsia is not a big well loved in Russia. So yeah, peasants conform. And the non-peasants don't conform. And if the non-peasants did conform, then they would have a little, decent. And the peasants conformed less. It would be a healthy society. It's a sick society, just because of, and it's been that way. It's stuck in feudalism. Russia is a feudalist country, still, and it's being run that way. So yeah, which is a problem too. But yeah, that's you got to have some empathy for the guy. But I'm not going to watch him speak. I'm recording this during the State of the Union because I will not watch his mannerisms because it just drives me crazy. I can explain him. I mean, I have to like him. I certainly understand him. I really don't like him. But I'll even work with him and counsel him on what the reality is, because I don't have the kind of clearances that would reveal sources and methods. If somebody knows Donald, tell him, we see your fear. It's sad, and it's why you're dealing with, but it's not justified. Donald, if you want to have a conversation, I can tell you what the reality is, because nobody else is telling you, because that's the way they work and that's the way you work. Well, yeah. See what I said and get into it. I could brief this guy, but nobody's about to let me either. So, it's like, oh, he's crazy. And it's like, no, I understand exactly what's going on. And of course, the person who knows exactly what's going on is the one who gets fired or not hired. That's just a truism in bureaucracy. So that's today's thing. I'm not even going to put out the whole anti-Trump screed that I recorded Saturday night when I was angry at his association with Moscow, because I understand it now more. And it's treason. He should be impeached. Or have to face that as an option in dealing with Russia. But yeah, because if he doesn't come around, he's dangerous, but not so terribly dangerous, because Russia isn't a paper tiger. So they really can't do anything to us. It's just inconvenient as hell. And they're doing stuff to Ukraine, but Ukraine is going to win that war. Russia can't. They don't have the intellectual capability at any level of their leadership, from Putin to the lowest lieutenant. There's nothing in the middle that knows what it's doing. So it's impossible for them to win, because they have no idea what they're doing. And it's like, okay, it's ugly, but only Russia can stop it, unless Zelisnky sends people up where Wagner's people went. If they take the Wagner route to Moscow, who knows what would happen. So, but I've said this before. Happy State of the Union, or whatever they call this thing. I'll see what the fallout is. But what I just said in 15 minutes is more than he said. Makes more sense than what Trump said for the last hour. If you don't know that, you're crazier than I am. So have a great week.